As an installment to our mini-series about data types, we are now on the second part of list. So how do we work with nested lists? In this video, we'll tackle dictionaries within a list and lists within a dictionary. To start off, we have this nested list with dictionaries inside. So you have your email list, so that's your main list, and inside that main list are a few dictionaries. You have your name, your email, and your student names and their respective email addresses. Trying to access these items inside this type of situation can be tricky at the beginning, but that's what we are here for, to help you guys understand it better. So for better illustration, let's assign colors for each indices. The first index, or index 0, is in yellow now, and the second index, or index 1, is in blue. What if we only want to print out a student name? What do you have to do? First, specify the list name. And then we need to specify the index, which is 0 here, because we wanted to print out those in yellow for now. And the next thing you have to do is to specify your key. Since we are working with dictionaries, we need to specify the key of the item that you want to print out. So in this case, you'll have to end up with student A. If you want to print out the email of student A, you need to do email list, and then specify index 0, and then specify the key of that dictionary. So we'll end up having a@domain.com for that. Moving on to the blue ones, we need to increase the index by 1, since we are working on the second part of the list, which is index 1. So specify index 1, and then specify the key again. So you'll get student B. To get the email, do pretty much the same, and then specify email. So you end up having b@domain.com. Moving on to lists that have lists inside. Now we have another set of lists. Pretty much the same information from earlier, but now they are stored as a list. Okay, so that you have to print email list, specify your list name again, specify the index number again for this list, the first list. And then since we are working with a list, we need to specify the index of the inner list. So index 0 of 0 will end up having name, email list 0, this whole thing here is index 0, index 1 is student A. For the next one, we need to increase that index so we can work on the next list. So email list index 1, we are now working with this guy here. And then try index 2, which is 0, 1, 2, your email. So that would print out email. And then index 1, and then index 3 is b@domain.com. Okay, moving on to iterating through nested lists. Using the same set of nested lists from earlier, we have student A and student B information. What if you want to print them all together, but you're tired of writing multiple print statements for them? So let's take a look. For student in email list, this is one way of iterating through a list. If you're not very familiar with loops and all the iteration stuff, you might want to check one of our videos currently uploaded. Okay, so 4, and then you're assigning each index of that list into student. If you print out student, you have to end up printing the whole dictionary, which is your first index anyway, and then printing out just the student name for that first index. You'll end up having student A, and then your email, so a@domain.com. So after that, it will iterate back to here. So now your student holds the second index, which is the dictionary in blue, this guy here. If you go inside this for loop, you're now holding the second index. Your student now is the one in blue, so that will print out name student B, email b@domain.com, and so on. Okay, So moving on to the next one, iterating through nested lists. The dictionaries, using the same setup from earlier, will now use double iteration. This initial for loop is for the mother or the main list, and now the second for loop is for the dictionary. So if you do another for here, and now you're iterating through each instance of student in email list. So you're assigning the key and the value of each dictionary here as key and value. And then if you print out key, and then just for better illustration, we have space, colon, and then another space, and then the value. So with that, we're gonna print out name, space, colon, space, the student name, since that is your key and your value. And then iterating into this inner for loop here, you end up having your email as your key, and then this a@domain.com as your value. And then after doing that, if all the keys and values are read from the dictionary, it will loop out of that and then move on to the outer iteration. Your student now is holding the next entity, the next index, which is the ones in blue. So if you go down here again inside the inner for loop, student now is having the details of student B. So key still remains the same, name, and then student B. Then iterate again, email, and then b@domain.com. Okay, looking good so far. Now moving on to list within a list. Iterating through that, pretty much the same. So for each list in email list, then we'll print out each list. So each list is each index in that main list. So printing that out, you have your all your details here. The whole list. Name, student A, email, and then domain.com. Looping back, then printing out the next instance, name, student B, email b@domain.com. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.